And there's nothing anyone can say that'll convince you, because this is unequivocally a supernatural event that we're talking about. And yet, just for the sake of those perhaps who, I'm open, but I'm not convinced. And probably what that means is you're open, but you've never engaged in the conversation, or you've never genuinely looked for answers behind this and explanations. I just mentioned a few things that would be good to consider, and I think they give us a confidence that this is not only a rational thing to believe, but there's no other suitable explanation. So the first is the empty grave. Empty grave that was guarded by Roman soldiers. And so, while an empty grave in and of itself, because some people have said, what if they just went to the wrong grave? Yeah, that's highly likely. Not really. But even if Jesus' disciples were among the densest of all humans ever to live, and they're celebrating the reality of a resurrection just because they went to the wrong grave, what would it take to turn that around and show them that they were wrong? Wrong grave, right? It was this one. He's still in there, right? And yet there was an empty grave, and not just an empty grave, but an empty grave that was guarded by Roman soldiers. Not soldier, but a company of guards. In fact, it says some of them went to the chief priests afterwards. And the reason for that is because, we're not talking about like the night security rent-a-cop in the parking lot, right? I mean, these are Roman soldiers, and it's not okay for them to fall asleep. They were put there to guard this tomb against a perceived threat, that being that Jesus' disciples were going to come and steal the body, which again, ludicrous that Jesus' disciples, who are hiding right now, who are not trained soldiers and who are not equipped with armor or the kind of, they're going to come at them with their fillet knives, they're fishermen. And so again, a laughable scenario, and yet even more so is this idea that, maybe it happened while the guards were asleep. They didn't fall asleep. Right? And that's why they went not to their authorities in the Roman military, but instead they went to the Jewish authorities and said, hey, this is what happened. It wasn't the disciples. There was an angel. There was an earthquake. We wet ourselves, right? And we were powerless. And so, because if you go back to the Roman authorities, then you're not just relieved of your job, you're relieved of your life. And so they said, we'll take care of it. Here's some money, go away, tell this story, ludicrous though it may be, and that will keep you out of trouble with your authorities. So the empty grave. 2 is the absence of a body. Had he not risen from the dead, all it would take is produce the body, find the body. And yet there wasn't one. Because he had risen. And then thirdly, and I think this is the most convincing, honestly, to me, is the radical transformation of his disciples from complete fear to fearlessness to the point of martyrdom. These guys, when Jesus was crucified, they didn't get together and say, okay, guys, plan B. Let's keep the dream alive. How can we keep this thing going? No, they were terrified. They were completely disillusioned, and they were in hiding because all of their hopes were pinned on Jesus, and they had just seen him treated in a way that was beyond their comprehension. I mean, brutally beaten and crucified. And when he died, their hopes died with him. There was no movement of God apart from Jesus. And so these guys were hiding and afraid. And then something happened. Because before long, these same guys are not only not hiding, but they are out in the streets speaking of the resurrected Christ. Not something they made up. Why not something they made up? Well, first of all, what would they have to gain by it? Right? It's not like, they knew about Joel Osteen and hey, we tell this good story, then, we got a future here, right? No, they weren't thinking, let's go on the speaking circuit. No. They had seen something that they could not remain silent about. And all of a sudden, they're going from hiding to, hey, arrest us, beat us, kill us, do whichever you've got to do. But we cannot be silent about what we've seen.